Welcome back. So, how important is to make sure that you abide to all the data regulations out there? We've all heard about the GDPR, for example, which stands for General Data Protection Regulations. This is something that was introduced in May of 2018, and every single company that operates in any form within the European Union needs to abide to these rules. Now, we've all heard about it, the potential fines, but I don't think many people actually understand how often this actually happens. For example, Amazon was fined almost $1 billion. WhatsApp was just recently fined $267 million for insufficient fulfillment of data subject rights. Home Depot, this was a different fine within the US, not related to GDPR really. Uber, Yahoo, Capital One. These are just a few examples that I've listed here. I don't think people actually understand how often GDPR fines actually happen. So if you want to find out more about it, I would advise you to open a website that's called enforcementtracker.com. This is a database that lists all the public GDPR enforcements. It may be missing some in here, but it's gonna have most of them, and you can filter by country, you can filter by violation, and etc. And here, if I scroll down, you'll see that we actually have 820 entries so far. And remember, this is not the full list. So let's think about it. GDPR has been around for less than 4 years, and we already have around 1,000 fines. So it's almost like on a daily basis there is a fine out there that a company gets, and it doesn't take much for you to be fined and investigated. It only takes one user, one unsatisfied customer to report to the right authority, and then the investigation is going to begin. In the example of WhatsApp, for example, they were actually reported 3 years ago. So there was a lengthy legal battle about this fine. WhatsApp never thought the fine is going to be that big, so they've put aside some money, but it wasn't nearly enough to cover this fine that just came up. And here, for each fine, there are links, and you can get additional information. And you'll see that this was the fine. This is a document with a final decision from the Data Protection Office, and you see that it's got all the details here. It's actually 266 pages long because they've been legal battles for 3 years. So this is a lot of headache, especially if you work in a larger organization where you have entities in a lot of countries and you're processing data from customers around the world. Then you definitely need to be on top of your data governance game, because the impact otherwise can be massive. And you can bet that this also affected the people in the company. We all know how it goes. But in reality, the fines are not the only impact that you're going to have if you don't have a proper data governance. If, for example, I go back to the presentation and we scroll up to the previous slide, you see that fines are probably one of your lesser problems actually. For example, if your data is not secure enough, nothing is going to stop someone, for example, getting to your data and selling it to a competitor, or even your competitors can get to your data. Then we have the what we just discussed with the compliance with regulations. Then we get to things that actually can cost your company a lot of money. For example, wrong data with bad quality means wrong decisions. Also, if you don't structure your data correctly, it means you have inconsistent data silos. You're not going to have an efficient way of reporting and getting to your data. And overall, what should be your biggest asset? Because your data should be one of the biggest assets of your company, because this is what's going to drive your business, and your decision making can actually become something that's pulling you down with fines, with a lot of frustration, with making the wrong business decisions. And this is why it's so important to make sure that you implement data governance correctly. you don't want to be one of the companies here on the list. If you have a few minutes, I would strongly advise you to have a look at the enforcement tracker. It's quite interesting to scroll through a few different cases and see why different companies has been fined. But anyhow, again, this is not your biggest problem. If you don't implement proper data governance, it's gonna affect your company in so many more ways than just fines. This is just a few examples that I wanted to provide you, just to show you why data governance is important. Let's now proceed to the next lesson.